Yeah. Now, if I was doing that with EFT, I would tap on this frustration, right? I will allow the frustration to be there and to flow out,
Right.
to let that frustration go.
Yeah, I took big breaths and would just let go of the breath. So in the same sense that I was letting it go, I wasn't pushing it down and pretending it didn't exist. I was still frustrated, but I was like, okay, but me being frustrated isn't going to help this situation. But so yeah, I mean, I love the different methods that we all have for our own unique selves.
Yeah. Let me address what you said about newbies not necessarily understanding this, because I know I was in that situation too, right? When I started out, I didn't have that awareness. So before COVID, I had a group and we would meet once a week and we would do tapping. And at the beginning of the group, we'd all sit in a semicircle and close our eyes. And I would play a series of chakra chimes, just a series of notes. And then we would open our eyes and we would share our experiences. Now, on one end of the spectrum, and this is where I used to be, there are people who just hear the chimes with their ears, just with their ears. And then there are people who hear the chimes with their ears, but also feel some of those sound vibrations inside different parts of their body. And then on the other end of the spectrum are people who feel those sound vibrations deep inside of their body, right? And it feels amazing. So that's where I am right now. But that now those people who only hear with their ears can see there's this whole other experience to life that they can aim for, right? They can try and get there if they want to, but now they know it's available to them. So that's what, to me, this story illustrates. It's like there is so much more to life that we don't necessarily know at the beginning, but just sharing this story allows those people who are just starting out to recognize that there's somewhere to go. But also there are people out there who have already this depth of experience, right? The empaths, they can feel at a deeper level. So they might start at this point. They might already be aware of those physical sensations, and they could start just allowing those to pass through.
Hey yo, welcome to the Godcast.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth!
Was there an awakening moment?
So this is like an all-encompassing awakening.
It's all-encompassing.
Every day, as they would creep in, I would just have to stop and catch myself right in those moments and say, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm giving you my fear.
And I also came to the understanding of what you're saying, what you can't have light without dark. But then I started having the thought of, well, if we didn't have nighttime and we didn't have the winter, then plants would never stop growing. So if we never had issues, then we would only grow more. The thing with me, I never got into the astrology stuff. I never got into really doing any kind of energy work until I was very firm with Jesus. And it's a thing with me and Jesus where like people are praying and I'll get the sudden urge to tell that person to give your burdens to Jesus, and they'll say like, oh, I was just trying to talk to Jesus.
Welcome to Godcast,
the Goodness Over Darkness podcast.
Here's your host, Emmanuel Kingman.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Godcast, the Goodness Over Darkness podcast. I am your host, Emmanuel Kingman, and I am solo for this intro and interview. Mimi was at work again, so she was not here, but I had on special guest Ann Hince, and boy, oh boy, is this an episode for you. All of you out there who are trying to heal themselves, everyone out there that has a mother or father who they're trying to convince needs to work on their traumas and to heal themselves. This technique is fantastic. This is for everybody. This is going to be an episode that I'm going to recommend over and over and over to everyone. It has nothing to do with meditation, nor psychedelics, nor any kind of etheric types of methods. This has to do with you sitting there and tapping on your body and thinking a thought. And what that does, it triggers you to let go of energies that are in your body, traumas that you've been holding on to for whatever reason in whatever capacity. And it is called EFT, which is Emotional Freedom Technique. That's what the name of it is. She calls it tapping. And she has quite the story of trauma that she had to let go of. And I'll tell you guys, I'm going to go try this technique out as soon as I finish putting this all together. I'm going to try this on myself, and I'm probably going to be recommending this to a lot of clients. I'm recommending it to you, my audience now. Go give this a shot. Really give this a try. I want you all to hear Anne's words. She has some high level knowledge, spiritual guru type of knowledge, that people travel to the jungle in order to try ayahuasca, to go to Tibetan monks and mountains in order to learn this type of healing. And she's giving it all for free. Go try her technique. Hit up her website. Go over there. Go see what she has going on. I honestly mean that I don't know that she even knows that her understanding of things is on the high level that it is, because she's not here for all that. She's not here for anything other than speaking her truth, giving her story of what worked for her. So if you guys have past traumas that you need to let go of, triggers that have been happening, here's a surefire way to do it. It was already working for me when I did a little bit. She said the word hate in here 2 different times, and I felt it on different meridian points of where I need to tap, because I have that the capacity is still in me to hate, because I hate something, obviously, or someone. And when she said it, it spoke to my soul and spoke to my spirit, and I instantly could feel that I had that in me. So I'm going to be doing this to let go of all of that which is still within me that I need to let go of. So I'm really going to be digging into that. I want you all to go check out Ann's stuff, annhince.com. Go check it out. Listen to this episode. Send it around to everybody, your mom, your aunt, your cousin, your father, your brother, whoever, everybody, your children, whoever. Really, this is one of those episodes that is for everybody. And it doesn't matter if you're into New Age, you're into Christianity, you're into Buddhism, you're into Hinduism. None of that matters. All that matters is this is a great technique that everyone should try and see if it works. Just give it a try. Why not? It's it's so simple. You can do it at home anytime. It's just great. So I'm going to keep this intro short, since Mimi isn't here to, bounce back and forth on. But I guess that she wasn't meant to be here. She'll have to listen back to it. Maybe she'll listen back to it right away. But she's definitely going to listen to this one. I'm going to be talking about Ann Hince and her method here for quite some time. I'm sure of it. So make sure you go check out all of Ann's stuff. I have all the links in the description. Make sure you go to my website, emmanuelkingman.com. You can hit me up for some energy work. You can hit me up for the mentorship program, which I enjoy doing the mentorship program a little bit more than just the energy work. I'm not opposed to doing spiritual baptisms and that's it, but I like doing the mentorship program much better. And I can do the free consultations all the time. And it doesn't matter what the consultation is about. I had people I talked to for an hour about their different conspiracy theories. I've had people talk to me about their issues that are going on and just relieve them of what's going on in their mind right in the moment. And it's just a talking through process. It by conversation. It's a therapeutic conversation. I call myself a therapeutic conversationalist. It's for legal reasons. That's what I can deem myself as. So you can go check out all my stuff. Make sure that you like this episode wherever you're watching it from. You can share it. You can comment, rate and review. Spotify has a new option for you to rate. Give it has the little 1 through 5 stars. Please go give it a 5-star rating if you wouldn't mind. If you're listening to this on Spotify or on Apple, I know Apple has that as well. It really will help the show grow. I don't have the capability to reach everyone who needs this without having some assistance from you listeners. I know I have a lot of faithful listeners out there, and I want to shout you guys out. You mean a lot to me. I really appreciate all that you do. I love hearing from you guys. Whenever you enjoy an episode, I have people hit me up and tell me how awesome that it was, and I really, really appreciate that. It makes it all worth it. So even though I'm not reaching a ton of numbers, that doesn't really matter to me. It's quality with me for people that I'm really touching them, helping them in their lives. And it's not just that people are fleeting, hearing my stuff and coming and going. People typically, if they come to the podcast and they listen to it, they stay with it and they listen to a bunch of episodes. And that's why I really bring on people of all walks of life so that you have several different places to go to and you can hear so many different opinions. And that's what it's really all about. Is I want to bring all of the types of healing to everyone that's out there. So if you wouldn't mind just interacting with the show in one way or another, send this episode to people, send them to her website directly. And she also takes clients, so you can work with her one-on-one, and she can teach a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know anything about her other than the conversation we just had, and I heard a few of her podcasts before, but I could feel her energy was so pure and clean, and she is here to help the world. She is a gift from God, and people are going to use that gift from God for their own advantage, and everyone should, because it'll be worth it. All right, so that'll do it for the intro. Uh, Make sure you guys wait for the end of the episode, and gives a really good take on something that I haven't heard before about the difference between psychedelics versus healing naturally. And that's at near the end of the episode. And I really, really like what she had to say. So stay tuned for that. And after the bridge will be the interview. So without further ado, here is Ann Hince.
Welcome to the Godcast. Cross up on my back, I'm slaying demons. It don't matter what you call that. Searching for the truth, facts are facts until they fall flat. It's looking like a story, man, it's all cap. But it's goodness over darkness, it ain't all bad. I'm at my maker, but I was called back. Emmanuel, show my people they're under a spell. Heaven or hell is free will. I made my choice and now it's well with my soul. I pray the same for you as well. Welcome to the Godcast. Welcome to the Godcast.
Hello, everybody. On today's episode, I have on a guest who has been transforming her bone structures through healing trauma. She went through an extremely painful situation, and in one 15-minute session, using a certain technique, she freed herself from years of built-up tension. She is author of the book, A Pathway to Insight. Everybody welcome Ann Hince to the show. Welcome to the show, Ann. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Yes, it is lovely to have you on. I've been listening to your story a little bit over, you've been on many podcasts before, and you are very fascinating. You have really honed in on this technique that I really want to get into tonight.
Yeah, it's been a pathway, not just one technique, but definitely one technique to begin, which then
Right.
opened me up to be able to use other techniques. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful how it does that. Everybody gets to their awakening process in their own way. It starts with one thing, and then that one thing leads to another, and to another, to another. And we really have no idea what we're getting ourselves into when we start to heal these traumas. But it's the most incredible thing. And what really inspired me with you was you said you almost became addicted to healing yourself, that you would sit there for and for an hour each night and think about, what else can I heal? Because it feels so amazing. And the way you worded it, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's releasing really old tension, right? It's got to feel good, and it does. It feels really good, and yeah, I just kept doing it.
All right. So, do you want to tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm originally from England. I've lived in California now for 33 years. And I grew up all over the world. By the age of 16, I'd lived on 4 continents, 5 different countries.
Wow.
So, that's the external. It sounds good, but on the internal, both my parents became alcoholics. So life, I used to say to myself, this is hell. I'm living in hell right now. So, that wasn't fun. And then when I was 19, I woke up one morning and found my mother dead in the bathroom.
Oh, I'm so sorry to
So
hear that.
that's okay. I'm totally through it, right? That's part of this journey. Now it's just a story to me. There's no emotion stored there anymore, which is really nice.
Wow,
But
that's
at the
incredible.
time it was a big trauma, and I didn't know what to do with it. So what I did was just nothing. Right? I just repressed it. I've been saying suppressed. I thought that was the right word. Someone told me yesterday. I actually repressed it. So I
Hmm.
just kept it hidden inside.
What's the difference? Do you know of those two words?
He was saying that suppressing is like holding it down so that it will come
Oh,
up again shortly after, and you can deal with it then. But
okay.
repressing is it just keeping it held down.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I mean. Maybe I suppressed it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Could say that. So yeah, it wasn't until my late 30s that I had this doctor's appointment, and he asked me how stressed I was, because he could tell I was more stressed than I should be, because I was a stay-at-home mother with 2 young boys. Now that in itself can be stressful. He recognized, though, I was more stressed than I should be. And he asked me on the scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was, and it was an 8. And then he asked me why. And I knew straight away, because the tears from that event 2 decades earlier was still just under the surface. All I had to do was think about it, and the tears would be there. So he worked with me for about 15 minutes on this, using this technique called EFT, which is short for emotional freedom technique. And it's also called tapping. He worked with me for about 15 minutes, and I walked away from that appointment being able to tell the story in my mind without the tears there. They had gone. So it was just a huge shift for me, that I knew it was significant and something that I should follow up on, and I did.
Wow. So nearly 20 years later, you you're stressed out at a doctor's appointment, and this doctor, he just helped you right then and there and was like, "Hey, I think you really need this." And it was this part of your diagnosis or whatever was going on for why you were at the doctor, or was this completely different?
I don't even remember why I was at the doctor at this point. It was probably something to do with one of my boys, but he was a holistic physician, and he knew this
Oh, wow.
technique. So it was really nice that he used it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has an interesting name. It's what was it again?
Yeah, it's called emotional freedom technique, which
Emotional
sounded,
freedom technique.
yeah, it sounded really hokey to me. I didn't like that name to begin with, but it wasn't until I'd used it for a while and then I could realize, oh gosh, it really does provide emotional freedom. So it really is a good name for it.
Yeah, so has this, technique been around for a long time? Was this your doctor that created this, or, do you know the origins of EFT?
It's been around a long time now, probably 20, 25 years. And it was first
Okay.
developed by someone called Gary Craig, who used to be a chemical engineer. And he actually lives in California. I've met him several times. And that was part of the reason I realized that it was probably a good thing, right? Because I have an engineering background and he was an engineer. So I actually had more belief in it to
Oh,
begin with.
okay.
which is why I started looking into it more. And plus, he gave it away for free. I mean, that was an amazing thing at the time. He gave all the information about EFT away to the world for free.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I try giving away all my information that I find out the different healing methods that I come across. That's why I don't have ads on my podcast, and I never will. I don't put it behind a paywall, and I never will, because all this information, I found out all my information for free. I wasn't, maybe I spent some money here and there on different things, but I mean, for me, it was God really just supplied me with the information. So why not supply it to others for free? So I really value someone who offers that type of thing out for free, but it's also hard to get recognition because people, they associate, uh, advertisement with, oh, this must be a popular thing. If it doesn't have ads, then it must not be popular. There's a whole mind control technique that goes into that sort of stuff. So people think it's a hokey kind of thing if it's given away for free. Like, it's this amazing thing, then why is it given away for free? So I want to hear your testimony, because I mean, this is just some brilliant stuff. So do you want to tell us what your process was letting go? Because I tried this earlier a little bit while I was working. I couldn't do the full effect because I was working, but I could feel emotions leaving me as I did this.
Okay, cool. That's great that you tried it out. So yeah, so I tried it out too. I went home and I had a 17-year-old cat that needed to have daily saline shots. The first time I gave him a shot, my hand was shaking so much. I just wasn't going to be able to do it every day. So I thought, well, this is a good test for it. So I tapped, as I said, it's also called tapping. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat, my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of injections and my memories around injections. And the next day, the needle just slid right in and my hand did not shake at all. So it was a huge shift for me. So I knew at that point that it's deceptively powerful. Wow. So I started working with it. I started using it every day. I started noticing, that's the first part, is actually noticing when you're becoming emotional. So I would notice that and I would tap and just let that emotion flow out of the body. And that's what it does. That's what EFT does. You're bringing the emotion into the body. So you might be remembering a memory, bringing a memory back to life in your body and feeling those emotions. And as you're tapping through the different points, you're actually letting that tension flow out of the body. And what's really important to know is that it's actually a permanent change. You're actually letting the energy flow out so it's gone. Now, there might be different levels or different aspects of a particular subject that we need to work through. And there certainly were with my mother's death, right? That first 15-minute session just got rid of that surface layer and it kind of opens up the subconscious mind. So then more memories, more specifics of the event come to mind, and then we can work through those. And then it's just a layer by layer process.
Okay. So with your cat, your hand was shaking from nervousness from not wanting to hurt the cat, or was this from something else?
Well, it was a combination of things, right? It was, I didn't want to hurt my cat and I hated injections. It's like, so there was so much fear involved and my hand was just shaking. So then I could tap on those, whatever comes to mind, right? We're working on our truth right in the moment. So if I'm afraid of giving this injection, those would be the words that I tap on to begin with, right? I'm afraid of giving this injection to my cat. Once that energy or the emotion around that particular phrase has subsided, then another thought will come to mind. It's like, well, what if I miss, right? What if I miss with the needle? Maybe that's the next thought. And then I would tap on that. And then once I let that go, then another thought would come to mind. It's like, well, what if I injected into the wrong place? Or, that might come to mind. And then memories from the past of, I had a lot of injections growing up because I lived all over the world. So then I could tap on those memories of how much I hated to have injections. And just all of those are different aspects of that one experience of giving a cat a shot.
Wow, this is some really incredible stuff that you're saying. That it's observational awareness is the first key, is observing that you're having this reaction. And for whatever reason it is, whatever you're working with at the moment, there's a reaction that shouldn't be. And that recognition is a big key to any of this awakening process, healing, trauma process. It's always the observation and the awareness that something is amiss. So you taking that and saying, okay, I shouldn't be injecting my cat because my hand is shaking uncontrollably, then I'm probably going to miss and I'm probably going to hurt the cat. So let me do this technique that really helped me out. And then boom, you could do it right on the first shot. So was was that the first time you were giving your cat a shot, or was this a process that was happening before?
No, the first time I was like the next day or so, and my hand was shaking,
Wow.
and I tapped that one time, then because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it a second time. It was just too stressful for me to
Wow.
think about doing that every day. So I let that stress go, and it just flowed the next day. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's how I knew how powerful it was.
yeah, well, it sounds like God gave you a synchronicity. He was like, "All right, I gave you the method yesterday. Now try it out today." And that just proved to you right then and there of how this simplistic method could really work. So, do you want to walk us through some of the rest of your process that you've gone through?
Sure. So that was just the first step. I realized after a while that my mind was starting to become quiet and I wanted more. So I went through and wrote down every emotional memory that I could remember from my childhood. And I tapped through one each night. So maybe an hour to an hour and a half each night
Wow.
until each memory became just a story, right? The emotions from it had dissipated. And I just found my mind becoming quieter. And it was at some point during this journey that I realized how quiet my mind was. And I could look back and say that those words that I had been using in my mind, the ones that I criticized myself with and judged other people with, those words had been programmed into me in childhood. And they were my dad's words that I would just replay over and over
Wow.
in my mind. But I couldn't see that until they were gone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. That is uh, another huge key is okay, now I have the awareness, now I'm getting rid of it, but let's examine where did this come from? We got to find out where it came from so that we can clog that hole up because we get addicted to this healing process that it feels so good that you feel lighter. It's a literal thing that lifts off of you. And you're saying all the things, it really resonates with me, all the things that you're saying. I'm an energy worker that I do these types of energetic things with people, and I haven't come across this tapping method, and I'm going to try to study this a little bit more and incorporate it in because this seems like the very thing that some people may need, that this very thing right here may be something that everybody can do on the spot. You don't need psychedelics. You don't need to go into deep meditation. You don't need to do any number of things that are out there in the spiritual community. This is something that your average everyday person who doesn't necessarily know they have trauma can pick up and start to do.
Yeah, and that's what I did, right? At the beginning, I didn't really know how much trauma I had held inside of me, but EFT, it doesn't matter with EFT. It's a great starting point because when I started, I was not aware. I mean, I knew the word awareness. I know it at a very deep level now, but I didn't know what it meant back then. And I now know I was not aware, right? If someone asked me, "How are you feeling today, Anne?" I would say, "I'm fine. How are you
Mhm.
feeling?" Right? I had no conscious awareness of how I was feeling. And this process, you don't need to know that, right? It just works on whatever you're holding in your body, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And
So, no, go ahead.
it expands that awareness, right? So I started to become aware of the emotions that I was holding. And then
Mm,
underneath every emotion is a set of physical sensations. And I started to become aware at that level, which is a deeper level of awareness, right? So
yes.
each emotion, we might use the words, right? We generally do use the words. We use the words fear or anger or frustration. But if we think about frustration, if we put ourselves in that feeling of frustration, there's actually a set of physical sensations that we're
Yes.
holding our body in a particular way. We're holding tension in a particular place or multiple places. And that is a deeper level of awareness that I didn't have when I started. but I developed through this work of releasing tension with EFT.
All right, and that's a great point to bring me to my next question is because I was going to ask you, you said you are reliving these memories. Now, was this a traumatizing thing again that you're reliving these moments of uncomfort, or was this more of I'm just trying to understand why I do the things that I do?
It was a reliving. It's bringing it back into the body, which can be, it can be traumatizing, but we have to realize, and I came to realize that it's just energy that's stored in the body. That's all it is. Those memories don't exist anywhere outside of us. They're just stored inside of us. And it's just energy that wants to leave. I think I've heard you say that before. Yeah, it's just energy that wants to leave. So having an experience on working with something like EFT on small traumas, small events, something like giving an injection to your cat, right, makes you realize that you can get beyond it and there is freedom on the other side. And once
Yes.
you know that, then you can work at these deeper levels, at these deeper traumas, and realize that you're just going to live through it for a little while. You're going to let this emotion, this stuck energy release, and then there'll be freedom on the other side.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of courage to want to face the things that you've gone through, and you've gone through some very traumatic things. You started out saying that your parents were alcoholics, and that you found your mother dead on the bathroom floor. That is, those things right there. I mean, that is a lifetime of alcoholism. It could turn to for you, and it could turn to so many worse things, and not necessarily worse, but so many awful things that are going down this path of whatever addictions and emotional traumas and mental traumas you could just add on in order to block that out. But to really want to face that stuff, that is a very courageous attitude that you bring to this. So, what was it like when you first started evaluating growing up with your parents that were alcoholics, as you say?
It was, to me, I so wanted to change. I so wanted my mind to be different because I was very reactionary. My mind was really negative and it was really judgmental, and I didn't like being that way. So I really wanted to change. And once I saw that it could happen, to me, it was easy. I knew I had to go down these pathways and relive these things, bring up the emotions, look at them really clearly, really open them up. And I know now, because I can sense it such a deep level, that it really is clearing out dis-ease inside the body, physical dis-ease inside the body. And, who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, yeah, it's like, that the energy gets stuck because it wants to leave us, but we hold it, and we don't know that we're holding it, but it's like, "No, get back here, like, I don't wanna let you out of me," and we don't really know that we're doing it, and we don't really know why, and it's because it's kinda programmed into us from our ancestral DNA that that's what they have done before, our ancestors before us, have held it in, so it's just programmed into us. So it's not even necessarily that there's some kind of MK Ultra that I'm talking about here. Mind control programs that are going on in our external universe, but this is something that's programmed into our DNA by actions that were taken by our ancestors that shared our DNA with us. And on top of that, the people who we grew up around were beating us into submission, not because they hated us, but because it was programmed into them to not express ourselves in certain ways and to not do these things. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. We're totally programmed. And it's, yes, it's not conscious. It's done subconsciously, unconsciously. And, we don't know we're doing it, right? I did it with my boys, right? I wanted them to fit in with my family, right? With what we do in an everyday experience. So, that's part of the programming. We brush our teeth, right? We come to the table. We take our elbows off the table, whatever it is the family works with. We program our children to do that, and we don't realize we're doing it. So yeah, and we don't know what to do with emotion. We've absolutely not been taught that. So that was the next part of my journey, right? Once I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions, I'd actually been going to a weekly group, and the guy who led the group used to say, you don't have to meditate. It's just about feeling your feelings. And he said that every week. And to begin with, I actually started tapping while I was in this group. So at the beginning, I didn't know what he meant. What does it mean to feel your feelings? So as the weeks went by and he said this over and over again, eventually I got to a place where I knew what these physical sensations felt like. So I thought, okay, well, I will try and do what he says. What does it mean to feel your feelings? But as you said, it's so programmed into us that they're so used to being suppressed. It took a while to actually train myself to do this. So what I would do is I would stand at the kitchen sink, I was doing the dishes, and I would recognize when I had a thought that had emotion involved, and I would try and feel those sensations. Maybe it's fear. And where am I holding that fear in my body? Normally for me, it's somewhere in my stomach, solar plexus area. So then I would try and hold it. I'd try and feel those feelings. Now, this is really hard to put into words. So you'll hear me say lots of different words here. So I'm trying to feel my feelings. And I realized I needed to hold my breath, not take a deep breath, but just hold it where it is when I've got those feelings in my awareness, when I can put my focus on them. I would hold my breath and I would actually talk to those feelings, whatever it took to keep my focused attention on that physical sensation. And I would talk to it. It's like, okay, I can feel this fear. I can feel you sitting there right in my stomach. I can feel that tension right there. And at some point I would need to take a deep breath and I would feel a shift. There would be a letting go of that tension. And then I would bring the thought back to mind, which is kind of what you do with EFT on the outside, using the words. This is a deeper level. So I'm bringing the words back to mind, the thought back to mind, so that I can feel the sensations. And it would be slightly different this time. It might have subsided somewhat. It might have moved around, but I would find those sensations again, do the same thing, hold my breath, talk to that feeling until there was a shift and it would let go. And I would do it over and over again with the same thought until there was no more emotion attached to that thought. And the thought was free at that point. So it would take me a long time to get the dishes done.
Wow. So what you're saying here, and for someone who's coming into this who has really no spiritual awareness so far, in their life, this sounds like word salad. It's like mumbo jumbo. Awareness, what does that mean? How do I hold my awareness there? How do I feel my feelings? And it is so different than the way that the average person is brought up in this world, that it sounds as if this is woman's crazy. But once you start to do it, you start to have a real understanding. So when I hear you say I would feel my feelings and I would hold that in my stomach, and then I would, as soon as I took a breath or I let go, the energy would then leave you. And I understand exactly what you're saying. Like sometimes for me, I would start to remember things, and I didn't do it through tapping, but I did it through meditation. And I would start to relive a situation, but it's not that I'm actually there, but I'm feeling as if I am there. And I'm feeling my skin starts to warm, like I'm getting nervous. I start to feel pins and needles sometimes, that it's just like a slight tingling on your arms. It is a situation where, like, if someone who has been hit their whole life, if like you go to like reach above them for a cabinet, they're going to duck down because they're programmed to fear something is raised above me. And now they're in that fear state, and you were just, reaching for the cabinet above them. So it brings out that, when, in that case it would be that, but whatever you're doing, it makes you feel that. And when you start to remember what it feels like to be in that position, then it becomes easier to understand what we're trying to say here. So, don't try to actually, I don't want to say don't listen to the words, but try to put yourself in a situation of a similar nature that Anne is describing here. It's not necessarily that you're trying to put yourself in her situation, because you weren't there. And she's just saying the words, but put yourself in an emotional state that you've been in, that you would understand of what she's talking about. So this is for all the first timers out there that are really trying to get a hang of healing themselves, that would be a good place to start, is just feel that scary place that you have that trauma, that you're stuck, that energy that's stuck in you automatically goes to that programming.
Right. And this whole process is about allowing those feelings to exist, to be okay, to be felt,
Yes.
because we want to push them back down again, right? We want to tell ourselves, don't feel that, right? Don't feel hate, don't hate someone, or don't think about that, or think positively. Any of those things are actually suppressing down the feeling, the actual feeling that we're feeling. But when we actually allow those feelings to be, just to exist, to be felt, then they will dissipate.
Yes, and I use the way that I phrase it is that that feeling still exists in you. When someone has something come up in their life, they're like, "But I've been doing so good with whatever, I've been doing being a good person lately, and then this bad thing happened to me." And they're like, "But why is this happening again? I thought I got over this." And I say, because it still exists within you. It's God bringing, it's round the mountain when she comes. It's always going to spiral back to you. It's reaping what you sow. And God is saying, are you ready to level up? Are you going to react the same way you did last time? Or are you going to level up? Are you going to let it go? Are you going to change? Are you going to get that energy out of you, so that we can have new loving energy, and that energy replaces that love is now replacing that trauma. So that's how I like to kind of phrase it for people.
So I think of it kind of like the law. I use the law of attraction a lot in the way I talk
Right.
about it to myself, right? I think of the law of attraction as happening every single second of every day. We are emitting a signal, and we're attracting back to us based on our signal. So I think of our whole being as the signal, right? It's our shape, it's our size, it's our gender, it's the clothes we're wearing, it's our hair. But the biggest part of that is the tension that we're holding
Yes.
inside from our memories. So if we let that energy go, if we let it out of our body, it's no longer a part of our signal. So we don't attract back based on that stuck energy.
Yes.
So until that happens, until we've fully cleared it out, we're going to attract something back to us that helps us then recognize it and let it go at a deeper level. So
Right.
yes.
And the new age, they call it manifesting. Christianity will call it reaping as you sow. Well, Jesus called it reaping as you sow. But the law of attraction, I mean, it's very apparent once you start to see that your external universe reacts to your own thoughts and how you are treating a situation. I just, on my podcast that came out today with Andre Mitty, I was telling a story about how someone kept parking in my parking spot, and I kept getting more frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. And then one time I said, "You know what? I'm not going to react to it." And then no one was there in the spot. And then the next time, a couple days later, someone's in my parking spot. I'm like, "All right, I'm not going to react to it." And the next day it was gone. And that was my that was my introduction into, oh, you're controlling your reality by how you're reacting to things.
Yeah, now if I was doing that with EFT, I would tap on this frustration, right? I will allow the frustration to be there and to flow out,
Right.
to let that frustration go.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
took big breaths and would just let go of the breath. So in the same sense that I was letting it go, I wasn't pushing it down and pretending it didn't exist. I was still frustrated, but I was like, okay, but me being frustrated isn't going to help this situation. But so yeah, I mean, I love the different methods that we all have for our own unique selves.
Yeah. Let me address what you said about newbies not necessarily understanding this, because I know I was in that situation too, right? When I started out, I didn't have
Right.
that awareness. So before COVID, I had a group and we would meet once a week and we would do tapping. And at the beginning of the group, we'd all sit in a semicircle and close our eyes. And I would play a series of chakra chimes, just a series of notes. And then we would open our eyes and we would share our experiences. Now, on one end of the spectrum, and this is where I used to be, there are people who just hear the chimes with their ears, just with their
Mhm.
ears. And then there are people who hear the chimes with their ears, but also feel some of those sound vibrations inside different parts of their body. And then on the other end of the spectrum are people who feel those sound vibrations deep inside of their body. right? And it feels amazing. So that's where I am right now. But that now those people who only hear with their ears can see there's this whole other experience to life that they can aim for, right? They can try and get there if they want to, but now they know it's available to them. So that's what, to me, this story illustrates. It's like there is so much more to life that we don't necessarily know at the beginning, but just sharing this story allows those people who are just starting out to recognize that there's somewhere to go. But also there are people out there who have already this depth of experience, right? The empaths, they can feel at a deeper level. So they might start at this point. They might already be aware of those physical sensations, and they could start just allowing those to pass through.
Right. And for anyone who is new, we're talking about empathy here. I use this example all the time because everyone has felt this at least once in their life. They walk into a room and it's uncomfortable. They don't know what just happened, but it's uncomfortable. And it was probably because two people were just arguing. And you walked in and they stopped arguing because they didn't want to argue in front of someone, but you can feel the tension. You know, the saying, you can cut the tension with a knife. It's something we can all feel this, but it's the tapping into it's uh, there is a thing listening with your ears. You want to hear it, but you also want to feel it. You want to bring it into yourself by quieting the mind or just by, I mean, different people have the different ways of doing it. So I don't want to confuse anyone that is new to this, but just really uh, understand that there's more to just hearing with your ears and hear with your body. Tune out the it's hard to put into words for someone who hasn't felt it, but everyone can and does possess the ability to feel different sounds and vibrations and frequencies and all that.
Yeah. And now you realize that there are people out in society, right? There are some people who only hear with their ears. So
Yeah.
they only hear the words, but there are other people who feel words and sounds at such a deep level, right? And those people can sense things in other people, right? They have a deeper awareness inside of themselves, so they can sense that awareness in other people. So some people can tell when other people are not telling the truth, right? Or when there are places inside of them that they're holding tension.
Yes.
Whereas the people who can only hear with their ears, they don't have that ability. And I think that's part of why society is so divided right now, because some people have a deeper awareness than others do.
Yes, yes, and what you're saying with holding tension, and this, I forgot to say this earlier, but when you were talking about doing the dishes and holding that awareness in your stomach and you feel the tension, I just had on Dr. Amy Novotny the other day, and we were talking about holding tension physically with our. I was saying specifically for myself when I'm standing around, I take stock in my body, and sometimes I'll notice my shoulders are a little high, and that I can let go, or that maybe I'm tightening my leg and butt muscles just a little bit, and then I'll let that go. And it's the same way, but instead of being on the outside, it is on the inside. What you were saying earlier. So
Yeah.
that tension. I mean, it's little things like that, making the realization that and that are the same thing, but this is inside, this is outside, and you let go of it and pay attention to it the same way. It's just observe your body and be aware of what you are doing in the moment, and if it's not a pure thing, just sitting there and feeling comfortable and confident, peace, love, all of these, joy, whatever, then there's something else there that's blocking it. And I like how you say that the negativity is overlaying the positivity, so that you like to, when you do the FT, you want to focus on the negative so that that gets out of the way so that you're in your natural state again. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Sure. So, well, let me continue a little bit with my story, because
Yes.
it's from the deeper level of awareness that I was able to recognize that. So yeah, so I was working with the feelings, and I would, instead of tapping at night, I would actually start lying on the sofa, and I would bring collective traumas to mind, because I'd worked through a lot of my childhood stuff. So I would bring things like 9/11 to mind and into my
Wow.
body, and might feel those feelings that I experienced during that event. And I think pretty much all of us had some feelings around that event. So I bring that to mind and let that dissipate, and bring it to mind and let it dissipate, and just bring it over and over, just like I did at every other level. until there was no more feeling left behind those memories. And at some point during this process, I found that I could actually keep my awareness inside my body, which I'd never heard of anyone doing before. It was really weird to begin with. And the only way I can really explain it, because it's really hard to explain, is, if you have a toothache or a stomachache, you can actually tell exactly where inside your body that is coming from. But once the toothache or the stomachache has dissipated, it's gone, you can't really pinpoint it anymore because it's no longer there. So what I found is I could keep my awareness inside at that place after the energy had dissipated. And it was, kind of weird. But I started using this. It was like just the next level, started moving my awareness around. And I found that I could sense tension inside. And I would do the same thing. I would hold my awareness on the tension, just not try and change it in any way, just hold my attention on it, and it would dissipate. And then I would do it again and again, just like I did at every other level.
Wow, this is some top level energy work that you're talking about, that you've never heard of it, and you started doing it on yourself. This is similar to me. I just started feeling my chakra centers, my energy centers. They just started, I don't know. I just started feeling them the way that you're saying, that you would feel like a knot in your stomach and you could pinpoint exactly where it is. Well, I can feel at different times when I'm talking to different people or whatever. I don't know why I feel things at certain times, but I just feel my chakra centers are just highlighting, and they're just like, and it feels, this is very pleasant compared to, the knots in the stomach and all. So it's, for whatever reason, when you start to clear out all of this stuff, then you get access to your body that you were born with, that we are then covered up by, with all of this negative trauma. And you talk about the collective stuff. That is really, I mean, that's some deep level, high intensity type of stuff that you're working out here, that you're really trying to work out for the collective. Maybe you don't even know you're doing it, but you're being led by your own thoughts for some reason to, oh, that's a good idea, let me try working on that. Now, what did that feel like when you're reliving 9/11? What was that to you?
It was a lot of, right, all sorts of different emotions, because all we have, I captured all those images from the TV, right, of the, I don't want to talk about in case it brings things up for other people, but the fear, just all those emotions that came with the images and the stories that I had heard over the years. And it was a lot of physical tension from that I would just allow to be felt, just allow it to come out of my body. And I didn't really feel like it doesn't really feel like it's a collective thing. It's just my experience of it. And we all have our own experience is of those events. So I was just really, every part of anything that happens, our part of it is always how we feel about it. Yes. Right. So even if I'm listening to the news, I have some feelings around it. And that's where my power is to feel those feelings and let them pass through.
Wow.
If I'm hearing someone else arguing, there might be nothing to do with me, but if I have some feelings about it, that's my work. That's where my work is, to feel those feelings and let that energy flow.
Yeah, it's triggering memories. It's like they're surrogates for whatever put that trauma there in the first place. My girlfriend Mimi and I, she's not here at the moment. She may walk in at any moment. But when we first got in this relationship, not at first, but at first it was completely magical. But then, after the magic wears off a little bit, that now you're in real life situations, and then past traumas come up, and I'm the surrogate for what she had past traumas for. She's the surrogate for what I have past traumas for. And what's beautiful is that we were able to recognize it in each other, in ourselves. We were open to listening to each other so that we didn't get too big and blown out of proportion to where, we couldn't recuperate anything. But the amount of letting go that we did with each other because we played that surrogate role. And I also see it that as a stepfather for my stepchildren, as a stepmother for her stepchild, that we're filling these roles, and different things occur when different people are around. And that is them manifesting, reaping what they're sowing, giving another chance to let go of the energy, the karma coming back, however someone wants to word it. We are all surrogates. And I think there's not actually very many uh, differences in, like, life is one big play, right? Essentially. And there are different scenes that take place, but there's not all that many scenes. It's just different characters, different surrogates that interact with us at different times. And that is what makes it seem like it's all of these different things that are unconnected, because we're trying to connect situations with exact people rather than the energies that are actually there.
Absolutely, and it gets easier and easier to see the
Yes.
more and more you do this. Yeah, and it's even on the collective, right? So,
Mhm.
I see a lot of things now in the news and what's going on out there, and the thought that comes to mind, the feeling that comes to mind is that's just not right. And that is a thought and feeling that I experienced and programmed into myself in childhood.
Mm.
Right, so that is part of my signal, so I keep seeing it out in the
Yeah.
outside of me so that I can bring that up and let it go. So each time I think that thought, then I tap or I let that emotion out of me so that next time it doesn't have as much power, and eventually I believe these experiences no longer happen because there's no need for them to happen.
Yes, that is perfectly worded. There's no need for it because God is saying, "Okay, you're healed in this section, so let's move on to another one." And that's when I say, round and round the mountain she goes. It's because he doesn't want to bombard you with the same thing. Like, my daughter treated me this way, my girlfriend treated me this way, my mother. It's not all happening all at once. It's being spread out so that I can recognize it for what it is, and I'm not being bombarded too much in one situation. So this is just some fantastic high level stuff that you're uh, bringing to the audience here. And what you're saying with the insight, I feel that's probably your superpower. That we all have superpowers to some degree, and that you have the insight or the ability to understand what's going on in your internal body in a very deep level. So, do you want to continue on with your story?
Sure, yeah. There's not too much more. So at
Okay.
some point, I was actually able to put my awareness inside my head, inside my face. Took a while. I had to work with my body first, and then I was able to put it inside my face. And at that point, I had released so much tension already that things started releasing on a deeper level. And because it was in my head, it's kind of weird to say, but it was close to my ears. So at some point, I heard and felt something release, and it felt and sounded like old fabric ripping. And again, it's like, am I doing the right thing here? Am I hurting myself? I don't really know. Never heard of this before. But again, it was the next part of the process. So I just kept going, and I researched it a little bit and realized that it's the connective tissue releasing. And I would work with this more and more, and it would happen more and more. And at some point, I can actually sometimes feel my bones relaxing a little bit and letting go. And so that's why it's so great to have those x-rays that I had from 8 years ago and then this last year, and to see how the bones have come into more alignment. My eye sockets have aligned more. My jaw, which was way off to the side, is now more in the center, and my neck is straightening, and I've actually grown 1/2 inch, which is really
Wow.
cool as a 55-year-old.
So this is some pretty incredible stuff as well. Now, I feel on myself, I have what's called etheric surgery happening to me all the time, which is similar to what you're saying, but it's not something that I'm inducing necessarily. I'm just living my life, and then I just start to feel my bones shifting, my facial structure will just move. And it's not just my face, but I can feel my legs all over my body. I feel things being changed and moved about as I am fixing what is, it's how I'm reacting in the world. That then, okay, I did something differently than I did before, and I leveled up, and now my left foot is being worked on in this whole new way, and my face and everything is being worked on. But to I haven't had the opportunity to have an X-ray, but to have your bone structure change in the manner that you're talking about, that you actually became taller because your back has straightened up, or was it your neck has straightened up? That is really incredible, as well as your jawline shifted over. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and the whole back of the skull, I mean, you can see from the x-rays, the whole center of the face is kind of released and relaxed and kind of opened up. So it's fascinating to me to look at those and see what has happened. And it's just from accepting the tension, just allowing it to release, which is really just a relaxation at a deeper and deeper level.
Yeah. So do you think, or maybe you do know the answer, but do you think that these energies that we hold on, they get into our little pockets uh, of emptiness in between our bones, and that we're holding it there and we're not even recognizing that that's what's going on? And then when you release it, then your bones can go back into place because there's not this invisible ball that's in the way that's moving it whichever way. Is that what's going on?
I think all the memories, all the tension that we hold is actually held in the connective tissue and it's tying it down. It's like the energy is just getting stuck. It's not able to flow through, and
Yes.
we're shown it more and more the deeper and deeper we go. Right, when I was actually able to put my awareness inside my body, there was so much tension in there. Just the forces pulling my body out of alignment were, to me, out of this world. So much tension that I had been holding for 50 years, and I had no idea I was holding it. So it's really interesting to actually go through this experience and become aware at a deeper level, because now I can see, people who are who have physical ailments. I know how much forces are holding them out of alignment, and when we're held out of alignment like that, where our signal is different, right? We're not able to tune into spirit,
Yes.
I believe, in the way we should be. So there's so many benefits to actually letting this tension go if we can do that.
Okay. So can you walk us through these meridian points that are on our bodies that we would be tapping? Do you want to tell us, where the different points are?
With the EFT, sure.
Yes.
So, I do highly recommend this as a first step when you don't have the awareness of the physical sensations. So to begin with, the first point is the karate chop point on the on the side of the hand.
Is it
And
on
that,
each hand or just one?
well, you can use either hand. It doesn't matter which, but you're using one hand to tap with, and you're
Right,
tapping
okay.
on the other hand. And that's where you use an opening phrase, a setup phrase. So, I might say, even though my dad was shouting at me, I deeply and truly love and accept myself. Those are the original words. I've kind of changed that, but this is the original wording that Gary Craig developed. And you do that 3 times. So even when my dad was shouting at me, I deeply and truly love and accept myself. And then you'd say it again. Then the next point, you kind of shorten what you're saying. So I would just say, like, my dad was shouting at me. The next point is a crown point on the top of the head. My dad was shouting at me. The next point is the beginning of the eyebrows. My dad was shouting at me. And you can use one hand or 2. It doesn't matter. My dad was shouting at me. The next point is the bone on the edge of the eye. My dad was shouting at me. The next point, the bone under the eye. My dad was shouting at me. Next point, on the upper lip, under the nose. My dad was shouting at me. The next point, on the chin. My dad was shouting at me. The next point is the collarbone point. My dad was shouting at me. And then the last point is underneath the armpit, about 4 inches, where if you have a bra, where the bra strap goes across. My dad was shouting at me. And that's it. You take a deep breath. You let it out. And that's 1 round of EFT.
Wow. Okay. So this is really incredible stuff. So when I was doing this, because I'm an energy worker, I feel energies coming through me all the time. So when I did this, I wasn't watching the video, so I wasn't seeing exactly where you're describing, but I messed up at the one part for the eyebrows. I was doing in the middle, like where my third eye would be, and then I was like, that doesn't feel right. And then so then it raised up, or no, it actually lowered down. I was too high, so then it lowered down a little bit, and then I felt the other ones. It was almost highlighting, like, okay, go here next. I could feel the spot that I'm supposed to go to next. And as you're saying it was just really incredible. And for me, it was, so I was at first trying it with just one finger, and I'm like, do the crown with one finger. I'm like, that doesn't feel like it's enough for me. And now I'm watching you do it, and you're doing it with several, your whole set of fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is really incredible stuff. And it's just something that, so you start with an initial phrase, and then you change that phrase just a little bit, just for sake of time, or why do you change the phrase?
Well, the beginning phrase was the setup phrase. So even though
Okay.
something happens or something, I deeply and truly love and accept myself. I've changed the wording for that because a lot of people have resistance to saying I deeply and truly love and accept myself. So what I say is, even though my dad shouted at me, that's my truth in this moment, and it's okay that I think that. To me, that has more relaxation in it already. So the words we're using are just to bring the memory or the emotions to mind, right? So to begin with, I might only have the awareness of my dad shouted at me. Once I've let go of some of the energy around that, I might remember, oh, it was scary when my dad shouted at me, in which case those would be my words, right? I was afraid when my dad shouted at me. And then once I have a deep level of awareness, maybe I know, okay, I can feel that fear in my stomach when my dad shouted at me. And then I can tap at that level, right? Even though I'm feeling this fear in my stomach. So each level, we're just finding our truth in the moment, and our truth changes. So, when we're talking through an event, so if we're doing an event, we're just talking through it. So, about finding my mother, right? I woke up one morning and it was really quiet, which in itself was scary because my mother normally had the radio on in the morning. So it was really quiet. And that was kind of weird. So I would talk through that story. And anytime I felt emotion, then I would tap on that emotion. And then I would move on with the story until I got to the end of the story. And then I would go back to the beginning. And because the subconscious mind starts opening up, then the next time I talk through the story, there will be more detail to it.
Yes.
Right? It opens up. And then I tap through that. And then I go back to the beginning and just over it again and again until there's no longer any emotion around it. And then even the next day, other parts of the story might open up, and then we can tap back on those. But it's not even just events like happen. You can tap on just a word, right? So even the word COVID has memories for people now. It has emotions. It has things stored inside of us. So if we just tapped on the word COVID or COVID-19, that in itself would let go of the memories or the emotions we have around that word. It could be like just a word, a name, right? It could be mum, could be dad, could be hospital. Those words can just be tapped on as well.
Okay, so when you're saying this, are you saying it out loud, or is this just going on in your mind, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. It's a little more powerful to do it out loud, but sometimes,
Yes.
there's other people around and you don't want to do that.
I totally agree with you, and I say this to people all the time. The whole confession thing of the Christian church or the Catholic church, it is a good principle, or it's a good technique in its principality of saying something out loud, getting it out of you, but you don't need to say it to anybody else. You're just saying this. You go to your room, you go to your car. I tell clients this all the time. I'm like, talk to God, just get it out of you because that's inside of you. So when you're only thinking it, it can have very profound effects on you. But when you're getting it out of you, then that energy, you're speaking it out. And what this podcast has done for me, speaking my traumas, it went from I couldn't say this thing to all of a sudden now I go openly talk about different traumas that I've had on people's podcasts, and I say it with no issue, even though it's not something I want to talk about. It's not very comfortable, but I can say it because I'm removed from it. It's not no longer that I'm in that spot feeling these feelings. It's that I am someone who is looking back and watching it from afar and seeing the child that was me and whatever, the situation was, that I'm watching a scenario play out. It's almost like watching TV in your mind, essentially. But I'm not necessarily seeing it, but I'm understanding what is happening in front of me as I'm remembering this.
Yeah, absolutely. And with tapping, that's what you want to do. You want to find your truth, right? So especially there's things that we don't necessarily want to say to a person, right? But if someone's really annoyed us, then we can tap and say out loud our actual truth, right? And then it could be, I hate that person. We're told not to hate, but if we actually feel hate inside of us, it's much better to get it out of us than have it stay inside of us, right? So we could be tapping on, oh my God, I hate what just happened, or I hate that person, or whatever, and just allow that energy just to dissipate out of our body so it's no longer stored inside.
Yeah, and we don't want to pretend it doesn't exist. We don't want to be quote unquote love and light and just be positivity. No, we want to face what that is. And when you're saying that word hate, I'm feeling my left eye, my temple, or right next to my eye. I'm feeling it right in these sections that I have something there. When you said that word, I have something there. So I'm going to do this practice tonight. I can really see how this is going to benefit me. Like I said, being an energy worker, I've worked a lot on my body, and what's been happening to me in the last several months is I feel a lot of tension in my face happening now that there's stuck energies that I haven't been able to let go of. So I'm really going to dive into this EFT, and I think this is really going to help put me over. I don't want to say over the top, because obviously there's always going to be things that occur, but this is going to be a very good practice for me to incorporate with my clients and myself. Okay, so you are someone who worked in Silicon Valley for a while, and before we got started with the recording, we were talking a little bit about the spirituality part of Silicon Valley. So, do you want to touch on your thoughts of all of that?
Okay, you might want to lead me, but I will let you know what my thoughts are on the spirituality of what we've been talking about.
Okay.
And that is that I believe that our soul exists it's in our body through the connective tissue. I believe that's what I'm looking through when I'm looking inside, when I'm sensing inside. I believe that is our soul, and that where the soul is tied in, the ego is that collection of stuck energy in the connective tissue, and that as we let that go, the soul becomes free within the body. It feels comfortable in the body. It tunes into spirit more. And I believe once it's comfortable in the body, it's likely to stay in the body for longer. Whereas I think when you're using psychedelics or those other types of things, the mushrooms type thing, I think that's actually the soul being uncomfortable in the body and leaving the body for a while and then coming back. So I do think that it's two sides of the same coin, kind of the opposite. One's making it more comfortable and one's making it less comfortable.
That's a very profound thing that you're saying. And I wanted to ask you about the sight before we got into the next part. When you say you see inside of your body, are you seeing an image in your mind, or is this just a feeling and you're describing as seeing because that's what the best term is?
It's really sensing, right? I can sense light and darkness, and I can sense tension and no tension. So, right, I really am sensing at a particular place. I am actually looking inside the body, but sensing at a particular place, right? I know exactly where I'm focusing on. Okay. I can actually, if I look in the mirror, I can actually see small movements as things release. So it's definitely a sensing, and I'm sensing from somewhere, right? So I know where I'm looking from. I'm looking from somewhere in the center of my head. I can't say that it's the pineal gland. It's in that area, but I don't know for sure where it's sensing from. But yeah, and the light and the darkness is a really cool thing. It's kind of like my dad, like knowing my dad's words were programmed into me. It's only once I let go of tension that I can see that it was dark and it now is light. I have to actually get beyond it and look back and say, oh yeah, that's the case. So you mentioned early on about feeling lighter as we let go of this baggage of this stored energy. And I believe it's an enlightening process. And that is part of it. It's actually feeling lighter. We just feel lighter, but there's also that light happening on the inside. We're letting go of the darkness on the inside and letting the light shine forth. So it's
Wow.
both parts of that, I believe.
Okay, that is incredible. You're an incredible energetic being, and you really know your stuff. I mean, you're one of the most high level people that I have ever heard speak about energy work, and you're not even using it in the same sense that I've heard all the other people talking about it. And you come with this technique that you want to give away, tell everyone your story about it. This is some really great stuff, and I loved what you just said there about how the psychedelics make your soul, maybe you're so uncomfortable in your body that you send it to source, to God or whatever, that it's sending you somewhere else to the etheric realms, if you will, and then it comes back, and then you try to reintegrate into society. Whereas if you're letting go of your traumas without sending your soul somewhere, now you're just making it comfortable. You're getting rid of the things that shouldn't be here rather than you leaving. That is a very profound thing as well. I've never thought of it in that manner, but that makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And I don't know that for sure, Rick, because I've never
think
done psychedelics.
I think you know a lot, though. I think that all of the stuff that you're talking about, that these are thoughts that are just coming to you. I think you're very connected to God. I think you're a very special person. And I think that what you have done for yourself and what you are doing for others with your clients and going on these podcasts and spreading your message, I think that you have a very special mission here on earth. And you're bringing happiness, joy, peace, love, understanding to people who wouldn't have any other clue of how to do it, because a lot of these spiritual techniques, a lot of these things that are being taught today, going on ayahuasca retreats, they are not for the majority of people. They just really aren't. They're for a certain class of people that have the funding to be able to travel to places where it's legal and it's going on, or they're that there are another certain class of people that are able to get it locally and do their own thing, on the farm or in their apartment, wherever they are. But there's another class of people that are maybe in their 40s and 50s and 60s that would never do any of it because they were born and raised a certain way, and the programming of what psychedelics do, that they have no want to ever do something like that. And people really sell psychedelics as if it's this magical healer, but it's really not. It brings you awareness, and it lets you understand what could be, but it's the practices in your physical body and your current awareness and your present mind and body, that and the practices of letting go in the moment when things are coming up and doing it in the moment. That's what I really key in on my mentorship programs, is I'm talking to people about, okay, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? What maybe got you to that point? What can we do differently? I'm not necessarily giving people the answers. Now, sometimes I just flat out tell them one thing or the other, but a lot of the times I'm asking them to find the answer. I'm asking them questions and they're coming up with the answer, and then they're telling me what's going on. So what you're saying is extremely profound, and I really am going to recommend you to everybody that I talk to about any kind of thing like this, because I've been doing a lot of going against psychedelics lately with different appearances I've had, warning against them. I've used them at one time in my life for like a 3-4 month period. I used many different ones, and it helped me get to where I was, but I don't recommend that. And I recommend what you're saying now. I recommend that we do these things in our present awareness so that it doesn't come back. We don't need to open up portals or wounds or whatever we're actually doing. We don't need to leave our body. We need to get rid of the things that don't belong in our body.
Right. So we can be comfortable in this body, in this life here, and have a depth of experience. Right. That's one of the reasons I'm sharing this, is if people know that we can have this depth of experience, and it's totally as within, so without, right? When you have a depth of experience on the inside, you have that depth of experience on the outside. and it makes life just so much more worthwhile, right? There's so much more to it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that really holds people, uh, maybe not holds them back, but that they think that existence is go to work, pay your bills, do these mundane things. Oh, I gotta take the kids to practice today. I gotta do this instead of saying I get to take my daughter to practice. I get to go to work because there was a time in my life where I didn't get to do those things, but I had to sit in a jail cell. I had to do the things that I had to do because of my decisions that landed me where I was, because I was in the mindset of I gotta, I gotta do the dishes, just like that whole mindset of I have to do this thing rather than I get to do this thing. It's an appreciation of gratitude that we change our mindset to that really benefits us.
Right. And even, with tapping, something like that, right? If you tapped each time you were about to do something that felt frustrating, that you didn't want to do it, right? And let that resistance to it go, then it will flow more easily, right? So it can allow the days to flow. So, I mean, I love whatever happens during my day these days. I love it, right?
Wow.
I'm at peace whatever happens. I don't, even if I have a trip planned, in the olden days, it's like, oh, I can't wait to get away. But now I don't feel that. It's like, no, I'm enjoying today. And when that trip comes, I will enjoy that trip. So
Wow.
it's a very different way of being.
Wow. So when you tap on just your regular thing, is it a certain amount of time? Are you spending 10 minutes on one thought, or does it just go away as it goes away?
Yeah, as it goes away, and one of the great things about EFT is it actually lets you know, right? You can tell as your voice will change, right? You will become more peaceful as you're saying whatever it is you've been saying. Sometimes you will yawn, people will burp, or they'll sigh, or you'll have tears. Those are all ways of knowing that you're actually releasing stored energy. So I would just keep tapping until it felt like it had dissipated. But you can always do more. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're just working on something right in the moment to move to a next event or something, then just tap for a couple of minutes, a few minutes maybe, until you feel some relief. And it feels like that next thing is easier to do.
Yeah, and you just mentioned several different, what maybe some people will call purging techniques when ayahuasca, when you're letting go of things because you're yawning, you're not throwing up doing this, you're not having to go to the bathroom doing this, but you're still releasing energies by yawning, by burping, by tearing. So you're really feeling the emotions and really letting them go. This this episode is going to really change a lot of lives. I think that a lot of people are going to sit there at home and they're going to tap as they listen, and they're going to try this out because it's not something that you have to go spend money on. It's not something that you have to go somewhere to do. It's not something that you have to be some high level Reiki master, spiritual guru in order to let go of these things. Anybody can pick this up and really try this at home, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, please do.
So is there anything that we didn't get into that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, that was pretty fun. I would love people to work on current day issues, right? Our divisions, and just recognize that we all have emotions around any division that's happening right now, right? We might have emotions around our side of something, but we also have emotions around the other people or the other side of an issue. And if we tap on those feelings, right, the frustration about these people think that, or these people are trying to do that to us, if we let those emotions go, I believe we can all come together in peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that is a very beautiful statement that we can all get along. We just really have to let go of what's forcing this upon us. We're reaping what we've sowed, and everybody is a part of this. We're all part of the collective. So we've all put into, and now we're all receiving back from. This isn't that these people are trying to do this and these people are trying to do this, and that's just not how it works. And it may appear that way to some people on the face of things, because when we look at things on a surface level, you could easily detect that. But then if you go into a deeper level, and it may be a level so deep that we don't understand why, but all we have to do is just know that we can let go of what's going on, and everything will work out the way it's supposed to. That's how things have always worked out. It's always been the way it's been for certain reasons, and it's not always comfortable in the moment, but it happens for other things to happen later on.
Yeah.
So do you want to let the people know where they can find you? And do you have any openings for clients? Do you do one-on-one work? What's your status with that?
I do some one-on-one work. I'm really looking to share my story. So if anyone has a speaking event that they're looking for someone to come and talk to, this is the information. I don't believe it's out there, so I want to share it so that people know this is possible. But I do have a book. It's called The Pathway to Insight, and it goes through all the different steps that I went through and that someone else can go through. I have a website, which is annhince.com, and I have a public Facebook page that I love to say things on and interact with. If anyone wants to interact with me, that's a great place to do it.
All right, and I will include those links in the description so that everybody can find you. And I'll really be telling people about you. I have some podcasting friends, and I will mention you to them and say, hey, this woman, she has a lot of stuff figured out, and I think that everybody can really benefit from what you're bringing to the table, Ann.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll say goodbye to our audience. Goodbye, everybody. We will talk to you later.